Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Hillian and I would like to welcome you to my very first episode of Commercialize. So, what's this show about? Well, it's about commercials. And in the US where I live, these things can be found in pretty much every visual medium. Especially when it comes to television and the internet. Now, as the occasional user of television and the consistent user of the internet, I must see anywhere from like 30 to 50 commercials a day. But counting the days of my youth, I've likely seen hundreds of thousands by now. Still in the past, I rarely, if ever, thought about them in any depth. I didn't bother asking myself questions like who makes these ads, what approaches are taken to sell the products and services within them, and why should I care? These just didn't seem like relevant questions back then, but as time passed, I've come to realize they're very important questions. Commercials always have been and still are massively influential. They influence our buying habits. Our buying habits influence the economy, and the economy influences our entire way of life. These are not things that should be taken lightly, and so I think we could all benefit from observing commercials with a more critical eye, especially since they do contribute to any given country's cultural identity. We may not always be aware of it, but when we see commercials, we learn of the various people living within our country, the beliefs, values, and interests those people may have, hot-button political and social issues, as well as technological innovations, amongst other things. Additionally, taking a look at commercials gives us an opportunity to see how corporate America views us, for better or for worse. And so, I was thinking, why not do that? Why not observe and criticize commercials like we do any other artistic medium? Especially when the artistic medium is as influential and widespread as advertising. Can you think of a reason? I certainly can't. Let's do it. Over the course of this series, we are going to take a look at several commercials, figure out what makes them tick, and judge them for the good or bad works of art they are. With that said, you are watching Commercialize. Let's get started. Now, as I've said before, lately I've been questioning where commercials come from. And so, in the hopes of finding an answer to that question, we're going to take a look at one of the more popular ad agencies of late, the Martin Agency. According to the company's own website, the Martin Agency was founded on July 5th, 1965 in Richmond, Virginia, and first rose to popularity with its Virginia is for Lovers campaign. We're going to take a look at 5 commercials from the Martin Agency. And by the end, after the 5th commercial, I'm going to share with you my basic impressions of the company. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first of the 5 that I'm sure everyone will recognize.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-woo!
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy. Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
This ad bears the unsurprising name of Hump Day, and it's part of Geico's Happier Than campaign. The overall premise is simple. The idea is to communicate to us the happiness of Geico's customers after having switched from their older car insurance providers, and equating their happiness with the happiness of various people and fictional characters and their natural elements. So a camel, for example, would be happy on Wednesday slash hump day because it has a hump. Now, for those of you who don't keep up with commercials, know that this was the biggest commercial of 2013, by far. People were quoting it at my job. It had over 20 million views on YouTube last time I checked. I even saw like an interview with the people responsible for making the ad on CBS News. It wasn't particularly interesting, although I did learn that the camel's name is Caleb. So do with that what you will. It even became so frequent and distracting for children to yell out,
Hump day!
Get happy.
At a Vernon Center Middle School in Connecticut, that children have been banned from saying it. Wow. So we know that the commercial is popular, but why? Well, no critic likes to start out their analysis by saying this, but I'm not entirely sure why. That's not to say that it doesn't do some things right. For one, it's very well acted. The people that work in this company, which is called BDC, judging by the letters on the wall, do a fantastic job of communicating to the audience just how frustrating this whole experience is. The slow blinking and head shaking, the avoidance of eye contact, the deadpan look on their faces, everybody's body language just sings a sad song of repetition. It's clear from the look on their faces that this isn't the first time Caleb has done this. He does this every single Wednesday. Additionally, we can't forget that Caleb the Camel, I do have to admit that sort of just rolls off the tongue. Caleb the Camel has an excellent voice actor. He's loud, smug, overly enthusiastic, yells out the name of others repeatedly.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And repeatedly asks rhetorical questions.
Guess what day it is?
Caleb's voice paints a perfect picture of the kind of person we're all familiar with. The kind of person completely and hopelessly oblivious. The kind of person that just can't read the body language that says, "Go away, you're making me uncomfortable." He is annoying in every sense of the word, and yet his enthusiasm for Wednesdays alongside his precisely worded utterances make him extremely quotable. Even the lip syncing is surprisingly well done. For the most part, Caleb's lip movements sufficiently match those of a human while still retaining the unique visual characteristics of camels that make them interesting to look at in the first place, such as their lower rotating jaw.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
The commercial is also very well shot. Nearly every shot in the ad showcases just how large this animal is. It's towering over everyone in the office and looming over those in the foreground. These shots, alongside the body language of the employees and Caleb's overbearing voice, make for an incredibly invasive and claustrophobic yet immersing and lighthearted atmosphere. The ad does give us something catchy and audible to latch on to, aside from the usual banjo-based musical cues we're accustomed to hearing in this marketing campaign, which is when we hear Caleb yell,
Get happy.
The camel yelling that one phrase is much more memorable than these guys talking about car insurance, but whether it's them or
Get happy.
it has a good chance of lingering in the viewer's mind. Also, I didn't know that Wednesday was also referred to as Hump Day, so I guess I learned a little something there. I think the ad's appeal for the most part is that it's relatable. We've all been around annoying people ourselves. We've been annoying people. The camel is just sort of a big bonus. That said, I don't think the ad is flawless. It certainly has some flaws. One of which is that it's actually very easy to forget that this ad is about,
Get happy. Get Geico.
you know, car insurance. Let me ask you, does anything you're seeing scream or even whisper car insurance? No, it doesn't. Any way you look at it, this ad is about an annoying camel in an office building, not car insurance. I know the idea of this commercial is that people will see the camel or hear the phrase hump day and they'll associate that with Geico. But that, I can honestly say, that never happened for me. Prior to this review anyway, when I first thought about this commercial, I always stopped at Hump Day and never got to Geico. In fact, when I first saw this ad, I didn't even know it was a Geico commercial. Maybe on some level I did, but it still seems like kind of a risky maneuver. I really think the commercial would have benefited from more direct association to the service it was attempting to sell. The ending tagline about saving hundreds of dollars after switching to Geico Seems more like a tangential afterthought than a legitimate sales pitch.
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day.
Get happy. Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
A second problem I have with this commercial is that while it is well acted and well directed, I'm not so sure I like the premise to begin with. I'll admit that some of the premise seems decent. Jokes about awkward co-workers have been explored before, but hardly exhausted. I guess it's really the camel thing that bothers me. Why a camel? Why hump day? It just seems so mind-numbingly simplistic and random. If this ad had referenced another animal on another day of the week, would it still be so funny? Obnoxious talking animals are hardly new to advertising as well. So why is it so special here? Is the mere image of a camel that funny? Is it the cadence made by yelling out the phrase hump day? Or is it just the sound of, this voice?
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh?
Coming from this animal? Or is there a deeper formula? After all is said and done, I still don't know. But I'm going to wrap this up. I should say that when I first saw this commercial, I really didn't care for it. But after taking the time to study it and realizing just how well directed, acted, relatable, and quotable it is, I can honestly say still don't like it. I understand somewhat why it's popular, but the ad seems unrelated to the service it's advertising and fueled by a disgustingly thin premise. If there's anyone out there that feels they might have an explanation as to why this ad is so funny, feel free to tell me in the comment section. I am very interested in what you have to say. But without further ado, let's take a look at the next commercial.
You're right. That's a fifth floor problem.
Not in my house. No. Not today.
Jimmy, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? Happier than Dikembe Mutombo blocking a shot. Nice.
Get happy. Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Okay, so apparently this ad is entitled Basket. I'm not entirely sure why. It's obviously part of the same marketing campaign as the ad we just witnessed. Initially, I didn't think it would be a good idea to review more than one ad from the same marketing campaign. My reasoning being that ads from the same marketing campaign, by their very nature, tend to share similar ideas. So to review more than one might seem redundant. I still believe that for the most part. So I don't intend to make a habit out of this, but I definitely wanted to draw a comparison between the previous ad we saw and the one that we're about to watch. Once again, overall, since this ad is part of the same marketing campaign as the previous one, the overall premise is the same, except this time we're equating the happiness of Geico's customers after having switched from their old car insurance providers to Dikembe Mutombo's happiness after blacking a shot rather than the hump. That aside, they aside from the overarching concept, these two ads do share some similarities. So, let's discuss them. The stars of both are large enough to tower over everyone else in the ad. They're in environments they don't belong in and disrupt the people around them from functioning as they should. However, that is where the similarities end. This ad isn't as popular as the Hump Day ad, but it's still pretty popular with over 4 million views on YouTube. This is definitely my favorite of the two ads, and I think it has a lot of things going for it. The first of which is that it makes use of a celebrity actor. Typically, I don't think you can go wrong with celebrity actors. Celebrity actors are often experts on a particular kind of product or service or skill. They're easy on the eyes, they're talented, they're role models, or at the very least a familiar face. And I think, generally speaking, they're a superior alternative to the average Joe. There are exceptions, of course, but it's always better to have something pitched to you by a familiar face rather than a stranger. It's just more likely you'll remember the ad.
Happier than Dikembe Mutombo blocking a shot.
Secondly, what's best about this ad is that while it makes use of a celebrity actor, it doesn't rely on him, and with good reason.
Dikembe Mutombo was a retired basketball athlete who played for the Houston Rockets and was legendary for his shot blocking ability.
That said, I know most of the people watching this commercial probably won't know who Dikembe Mutombo is, but the beauty of it is that you really don't have to know who he is or even be a basketball fan, for that matter, to appreciate it. You can learn everything you need to learn about him from the ad itself.
He's really tall, probably from Africa, plays for Houston, and good at blocking shots. It's all right there.
Not in my house.
Furthermore, even if you didn't know anything about Dikembe Mutombo, he's still really funny in this commercial. It's just your basic random humor.
You can't help but laugh as you ask questions like, where did this guy come from? Why is he doing this? And why is he picking on children of all things? I couldn't help but appreciate the smaller things, like hearing all the different kinds of sounds made by the things Mutombo hits. Even the timing of these sounds is flawless, like the slapstick in a Warner Brothers cartoon.
I think a third factor in this ad's favor is that it has especially good pacing, and most of that can be attributed to the constantly changing backgrounds and the fast editing. Finally, I think it works because it's less vulnerable to the very same criticisms I directed at the Hump Day ad. There it was kind of difficult for me to tell what was supposed to be, what made it so funny. I guess I had an idea of why it was supposed to be funny, but I didn't really feel that made it funny per se, if that makes any sense. But here's a bit more obvious.
The ad is funny because such a tall foreign man is devoted to interrupting such basic and trivial goals and exhibiting such childish behavior. There are the shocked looks of the people he meets and the fact that he seems to be omnipresent for some reason.
Humor is subjective, so I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that love the Hump Day ad and didn't really care for this one. And that's fine and all, but I think this ad was a bit more clear in terms of what was supposed to be funny and why it was supposed to be funny. And at the very least, it's not so creatively bankrupt that it needs to rely on obnoxious talking animals to make it, catchy or memorable. My second criticism of the previous ad was that I didn't think many people would associate it with Geico. The logo appeared, but your eyes were glued to the camel the whole time.
In this commercial, you're much more likely to notice the logo because Mutombo smacks down the G in Geico at the end of the ad. Sure, the G is missing now, but the mere fact that he interacts with it at all makes it much more likely the viewer will notice it.
The one problem I have with this commercial is that it does still suffer from the same problem I mentioned in regards to the previous ad, which is there's still not a strong enough association between the content on screen and car insurance. Now, it's definitely improved. People are at least more likely to notice that this is a Geico commercial and, hey, there's an actual car in it.
Overall, I think this is a good commercial. Many may not think it as funny as the Hump Day commercial, but it's still solid. Furthermore, the added emphasis on the company's logo alone makes this a superior ad to the Hump Day commercial. However, with a stronger association towards car insurance, it could have been perfect.
On to commercial number 3.
I found the best cafe in the world, Nespresso, where I never have to compromise on anything, where just one touch creates the perfect coffee, where every cappuccino and latte is only made with fresh milk, and where the staff is exceptionally friendly. Nespresso. What else?
Not sure why, but this ad doesn't seem to have a title. It's from the Martin Agency's No Compromise campaign. And the idea is that coffee at home is convenient but not too flavorful. Whereas coffee at a cafe is flavorful but not very convenient. But with Nespresso, you can have the convenience of coffee machines with the flavor that comes with a coffee prepared at a cafe. One no longer need choose between the two. So, a few positives.
1. It features Penelope Cruz, an actress who's played roles in movies such as Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, 9, and the infamous Vanilla Sky. So, yeah, it features a celebrity.
As I said before, you can't go wrong with that.
2. The way Penelope Cruz says Nespresso is kinda hot.
Nespresso.
Third, and most importantly, the product the ad is attempting to sell is well presented, for the most part.
The coffee machine looks clean, simple, elegant, and colorful. Look at the coffee capsules. They're beautifully arranged and greatly enhance the product's overall aesthetic value. I mean, I want to try those things out, and I don't even like coffee.
Hey, presentation matters.
The actual coffee looks pretty good too.
This is standard in advertising, but I can't help but point out what a neatly controlled image this is.
Notice how the cup is filled to the absolute brim with no empty space to be seen.
Why? Well, just because a full cup is more appetizing than half a cup.
Notice how the brown ring perfectly encircles the frothy white center, ensuring that this particular cup of coffee is sufficiently colorful without being tacky. Notice how this drop of coffee falling from the machine into the cup does not appear to be real, but rather computer-generated imaging.
Why? Well, because the texture and color of fake coffee is more easily manipulated than the texture and color of real coffee. And with the use of CG, the Martin Agency can make coffee that looks better than it would in real life.
Notice how the coffee drop falls into the cup dead center to imply balance and perfection. Notice how the coffee drop falls in slow motion to imply a gentle touch, precision, and full appreciation of coffee as an art form. A lot of energy and patience went into this image, and it shows.
Still, there are a few things I don't like. For one, there's the celebrity actor. Now, as I said earlier, a celebrity actor is definitely preferable to your average Joe, but the exception occurs when the celebrity fails to bring anything unique to the commercial. That said, I don't have anything against Penelope Cruz, but what is she bringing to the table that no one else can?
I agree she's beautiful and has a sexy accent.
However, there are several women that fit that profile, yes? The Martin Agency only seem interested in exploiting her basic identity as a celebrity rather than anything genuinely unique. Again, looking back on the previous ad, we can see and hear several factors that make Mutombo unique as a person. He's really tall, even by the standards of a basketball player, has an African accent,
Not in my house.
a goofy face, the reputation for blocking shots,
Jimmy, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? Happier than Dikembe Mutombo blocking a shot. Nice.
and what appears to be a genuine enthusiasm for the commercial. Look at that smile. Look at that smile. He's enjoying himself. You may or may not like Mutombo or his ad, but at the very least you have to admit he's unique because you really can't think of too many other people that fit that profile. It's important that a celebrity has some charm other than his or her looks or fame. Otherwise, the commercial falls completely flat for people who aren't familiar with that particular celebrity, and sadly, that's the case here.
Penelope's more unique traits may not be as obvious as Mutombo's.
However, if the Martin Agency wasn't up to the task, they shouldn't have used her. Another problem with this commercial is that it's boring. It's just built on a boring concept.
I mean, what even happens here? Let's see. Penelope Cruz is on a couch reading a book with no definable title or cover. She sees a hot guy preparing coffee for her. We see the coffee machine. She walks from the couch to him. She grabs the coffee. smiles at the screen, and the commercial ends.
That's it. What about that was entertaining? It wasn't dramatic, romantic, funny, action-packed, emotionally gripping, or thought-provoking in any way, shape, or form. At the very least, the previous ads were based on potentially funny concepts. So even if they didn't have good acting talent, they'd have a chance at success. This ad would likely be boring no matter who was in it. If Samuel L. Jackson was here in place of Penelope Cruz, it would likely be just as bland and uninteresting. And I think we all know that is a sin against humanity. The music is weird. Listen.
I found the best cafe in the world, Nespresso, where I never have to compromise on anything. Where just one touch creates the perfect coffee. Where every cappuccino and latte is only made with fresh milk.
What you're hearing is a song called Blue Jeans by pop/alternative rock singer Lana Del Rey. The song is about a woman's undying love and patience for a man that's no good for her. In fact, he's described as a criminal, and the instrumental matches the darker tone of the lyrics somewhat. Now, I'll freely admit that this instrumental could be used to convey something lighter in tone when used out of context, but it still sounds a bit too bold for a coffee commercial. This is the type of music you listen to when you're skydiving or, looking down on the world after climbing Mount Everest, not after having the perfect latte.
I'm sure that's the intention of the ad agency, to imply that enjoying coffee made by Nespresso is a much more powerful and moving experience than drinking regular coffee. However, it still makes for a conflicting tone and comes off as overly dramatic.
A final grievance is that when I first saw this commercial, I wasn't too sure what it was about.
I mean, it's obviously about Nespresso, but what is Nespresso? Is it just a coffee machine, or is it a cafe?
I was nearly certain it was just a coffee machine, but not so certain that I was willing to make this video without doing a little research. It turns out it is just a coffee machine, but can you blame me for being uncertain? I mean, she starts out by saying she's found the best cafe in the world.
I found the best cafe in the world.
Later, she says every cappuccino and latte is made with fresh milk.
Where every cappuccino and latte is only made with fresh milk.
What does that mean anyway? What does she mean every cappuccino and latte is made with fresh milk? How do we know that?
Is the milk coming from the coffee capsules?
Does it come in a small container? If so, I'd probably consider that fresh. If I'm the one preparing the coffee, isn't it my responsibility to make sure the milk is fresh? If I'm using my own milk, it could be old. If not, it's likely pasteurized. Fresh milk isn't something you can guarantee. It's not something that just comes standard with the machine.
The machine does come with a built-in milk frother.
However, the commercial doesn't tell us that, and I'd hardly identify frothy milk as fresh milk. Fresh milk implies unpasteurized milk recently obtained from a cow. This is the type of phrasing we hear in advertising often that sounds nice but makes no sense when you think about it. What's worse about it is that they knew fresh milk isn't something they could guarantee, but they said it anyway, just because it sounds nice, which is just unnecessarily dishonest. Anyway, she then goes on to say that the staff is especially friendly.
And where the staff is exceptionally friendly.
The staff is friendly? Okay, how could you not think this might be a cafe? Are they trying to say that the staff is friendly because we'll be preparing the coffee personally and we wouldn't be rude to ourselves? Is the machine friendly, or does a hot Spanish guy just come in the box? What?
The Martin Agency is just trying to say that having an espresso coffee machine is like having an actual cafe in your house, which is why there's a staff and cafe not far from Penelope's living room in the ad. It's a simple and traditional premise for an ad, but the commercial is directed and especially written so awkwardly that you might think they're pitching an actual cafe at first glance. In conclusion, this isn't a very good commercial. I'm sure some will remember it because it features a hot Spanish celebrity actor, and I'll admit that both the coffee and coffee machine in the ad look impressive. However, none of the aforementioned things are so overwhelmingly beautiful that most won't forget the ad. It doesn't take full advantage of its celebrity actor, it's dishonest, it's not 100% clear what's being advertised, the soundtrack makes for an odd tone, and the ad's overall approach is pedestrian.
On to commercial 4.
Hello? You get Modern Warfare 3 yet? You ready to face me with my Assault Strike package?
Of course, been playing, but there is no way you've already unlocked that.
Yeah, I've already been around the world. Right now I'm playing the New York map. In New York.
What?
Yeah, flew to New York and got the game an hour before you.
You were able to fly on your own? Did your mommy walk you to the gate and the flight attendant help you get in your seat?
Nope.
Did you have a Shirley Temple on the plane?
I'm surrounded by 13 million people, and every one of them could beat you in Modern Warfare 3.
I don't believe you.
Believe this. Boom.
Dang, you are there.
You know, I met someone in New York I think you're really gonna like. Her name is Bouncing Betty. She's a blast.
And I think your Call of Duty is to get a life.
Sounds like your Call of Duty is changing diapers.
Sounds like your Call of Duty is being a stunt double for leprechauns.
You know the Statue of Liberty could beat you at Modern Warfare 3 and she can't move her thumb?
I know a number of inanimate objects that are better than you at Modern Warfare 3.
Name one.
A lamp in my house.
Yeah, you're playing Suburban Warfare 3, aren't you?
What time is it there in New York?
Time to get your butt whipped?
Yeah, time zones are next semester for you, huh?
You know what time zone you're in?
What's that?
Loser.
You're gonna be really sorry because in the game, I'm the Juggernaut.
You're Juggernaut, the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut what?
Good at video games?
I am the Juggernaut.
You're a loser.
You're sitting in a hotel room playing a video game in New York.
Hang on a second, I'm getting another call. Hi, you're a loser, please hold.
I'm sorry, was it... Hello?
Apparently this commercial is titled Modern Warfare 3, which makes sense, I guess. And it's part of the Martin Agency Smack Talk campaign. Okay, so positives. I like this commercial. I think it's funny. And I think the reason it's funny is because it's relatable. Video games are a big hobby of mine. I consider myself a hardcore gamer. And I can honestly say this is how a lot of them talk. It's somewhat exaggerated, of course, but realistic for the most part. You know, they're always bragging over who got the game first.
Right now I'm playing the New York map. In New York.
What?
Yeah, flew to New York and got the game an hour before you.
They brag over who gets the DLC first.
You ready to face me with my Assault Strike package?
They're dishonest about how far they've gotten in the game.
Like this guy. I love how he says he's been playing when he's clearly just purchased the game.
Often using game-specific jargon.
You know, I met someone in New York I think you're really gonna like. Her name is Bouncing Betty. She's a blast.
They make personal attacks on each other's character.
And I think your Call of Duty is to get a life.
Sounds like your Call of Duty is changing diapers.
Sounds like your Call of Duty is being a stunt double for leprechauns.
You know the Statue of Liberty could beat you at Modern Warfare 3 and she can't move her thumb?
I know a number of inanimate objects that are better than you at Modern Warfare 3.
They do all of these things, and I'm honestly impressed at how well they managed to portray hardcore gamers here, because I have said things of this nature to people, and people have said those things to me. Some of the jokes land and others don't, but even that sort of works in the commercial's favor because it makes the characters seem more human. You know, they're not comedians. They're just two guys that like to play games, and just like real people, some of the jokes they make will be kind of witty and others won't.
Heck, they're even shaped like many hardcore gamers. Although this guy either gets a lot of sun or had a tan recently. The skin around his eyes seems hilariously paler than the rest of his skin.
The fast editing helps compensate for the pedestrian backgrounds, and while the runtime is just a little long, I think the dialogue is strong enough to keep most viewers entertained. But there are problems, and the problems are as follows. One, it's easy to forget that this is a Walmart commercial, and I bet that threw some of you for a loop. I mean, it's definitely an advertisement for both Modern Warfare 3 and Walmart, but Walmart just seems to get so little representation in its ad for whatever reason.
We see plenty of footage from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and it's all the characters in the commercial talk about. However, the only thing in the ad that implies this might be a Walmart commercial is the message at the end, and those conveniently placed Walmart bags on the floor.
I suppose the marketing agency would consider this an exercise in subtlety, and I suppose you could say it is, but I think it's just a bit too subtle.
I mean, the bags aren't hard to notice, but they could be easier to notice. In fact, I'm certain these bags are the reason the ad is so long to begin with. The marketing agency probably feared that some viewers wouldn't notice the bags if the ad were shorter, so they lengthened the ad to ensure the bags were more noticeable. They were right, of course, but it probably would have been more effective to just make the bags more noticeable rather than lengthening the ad. I don't know, maybe if the characters interacted with the bag?
Better yet, maybe do something other than just sitting a bag on the floor. I mean, another problem with this ad is that it really is sort of targeted at the wrong audience.
Judging by all the trash talk and in-game references, I'm assuming this commercial is aimed at hardcore gamers. The marketing agency's motive here is not to convince hardcore gamers to buy Call of Duty, but rather to convince them to buy the game at Walmart. And I can't help but feel they failed to reach this goal.
This really isn't that difficult to figure out. Your average hardcore gamer asks themselves two questions when deciding where to go in order to purchase their newest video game. The first being GameStop. Where's the nearest GameStop? And that's because GameStop offers a number of advantages and deals that Walmart doesn't have. You can trade in your old games for store credit. They offer more games in general. A large number of pre-order bonuses. Walmart doesn't do some of these things at all, and other things it does scarcely. So if you're a hardcore gamer, there's really no reason to even consider going to Walmart if there's a GameStop nearby. The second question they'll ask themselves is, what's the nearest store that sells games in general? And that is because sometimes even a hardcore gamer doesn't feel like driving very far. They might be a bit apathetic about the bonuses, the pre-order bonuses for any given game. Sometimes there's not a pre-order bonus for the game in question. They might not have any store credit to use, in which case there's really no reason not to just purchase the game at the nearest store. Get the game a bit quicker, save some gas. Many times the nearest game retailer will be Walmart, but I mean, it's not likely, especially in metropolitan areas.
This commercial should inspire customers to pass up stores nearest them in favor of shopping at Walmart. But it doesn't, and with good reason. When weighed with GameStop, you can't help but realize there's just no way Walmart, as it stands now, can appeal to hardcore gamers on the same level.
If Walmart wants people to buy video games from their store, they should aim for a different demographic. There are plenty of people who purchase video games for their children or grandchildren. People who are more likely to purchase video games for others rather than themselves. The type of people who will purchase a game just because they happen to walk by the electronic department in the store. This should definitely be the prime demographic for video game related Walmart ads, because these people are either ignorant or apathetic of the deals that GameStop has to offer.
Overall, I enjoy this ad, but I don't think it's very efficient. It's funny and relatable, but misses its target demographic, and all the time and energy that should have been devoted to the retailer, Walmart, is instead given to the product, Modern Warfare 3. After first seeing this commercial, I forgot it had anything to do with Walmart. The added emphasis on the game rather than the retailer also serves to make the entire ad more dated than it might otherwise be.
Now on to our final commercial.
This phone, hang on. Here I am. Hate to see a man struggle with side buttons. I give you the new G2 from LG. With an innovative single key on the back, you'll be in complete command of your phone. Oh. Sword! Anyone for s'mores? Ladies? No?
The new G2. With LG, it's all possible.
This commercial is named S'mores and is part of the Martin Agency's Go Forth and Conquer campaign. I would be lying if I said I was 100% sure where they were going with this. I guess the idea is to appeal to a younger and probably geekier demographic using a lot of intense imagery that you might see in epic cartoons, video games, or movies. The title itself seems to imply themes of self-empowerment and freedom.
Let me say first that I do like the visuals, or rather this one visual effect. It's reminiscent of the effects one might see in fantasy films, and I think geeks of escapist fiction would have a special appreciation for this kind of effect.
Additionally, I suppose you could say this commercial is somewhat relatable. I think there are a lot of fiction fans, especially younger ones, that envision themselves in the roles of characters like this that can pull off supernatural feats of strength. And so in a sense, it's not such a bad idea to associate the freedom and power that comes with, these characters in fantasy films, for example, to the freedom and power one might acquire by owning a G2. As if to say,
hey, wanna be like this guy? Then you need a G2. Also, I'll admit it's kind of funny when the guy dressed in business attire starts looking around after watching this guy split the earth in two with a single stomp and exposing lava underneath.
As if to highlight the absurdity of no one else being around to see it.
Additionally, I think the idea of controlling one's entire phone with a single key is a decent hook. It sounds convenient.
Unfortunately, I'd say it gets a lot more things wrong than right. For example, our first character's acting.
What's with the weird sound he makes at the beginning of the ad?
Is he choking on a hairball?
What's with the goofy grin?
Is this guy supposed to be angry or upset? I'm not convinced. Then there are the editing issues.
Remember the binder our first character held earlier in the ad?
We know he's gonna drop it.
But for some reason, rather than showing him drop the binder naturally, they just cut to a scene where the binder is already falling.
I guess seeing him drop the binder in one shot was too hard? Not to mention, this is insanely contrived. Isn't this the whole reason we use binders? So that your papers don't spill out like that because, they're held in by rings or at the very least tight pockets.
Obviously, the binder he's holding here is pretty small. However, when he drops it, the binder and the contents within seem to double in size.
The binder wasn't big enough to make that much of a mess.
Now, it's understandable they'd want a big mess when he drops it because it makes the entire event seem more cumbersome. What's odd is that they chose not to just reshoot the commercial and instead take these weird and unnecessary shortcuts.
Another problem is that the commercial is a bit vague on details. Obviously, someone felt the G2's main selling point was the quote-unquote innovative single key on the back, but I'm not entirely sold on this idea that having more than one button on your phone is that much of an inconvenience. How exactly was this guy inconvenienced by side buttons anyway?
It's not even crystal clear he only has access to one hand in the very beginning of the ad because we don't see him holding anything in his other hand. Then by the time we do have an opportunity to see the cup in his hand, it's barely noticeable.
Does he really need more than one hand anyway? I have an iPhone. It has several buttons, but I can still operate it with one hand just fine. Furthermore, I wouldn't have even been able to tell the side buttons, supposedly, are what made him drop his papers if the commercial didn't flat out tell me so.
It would be slightly more understandable if this were a radio ad, but it's not. You have a camera. Show, don't tell.
I haven't even mentioned the fact that this is an incredibly rushed commercial. Part of the reason this commercial sort of rubs me the wrong way is that it's so horribly paced. This is one of those commercials I can't help but feel should have been another 30 seconds longer. The whole point of the commercial was that we as the audience would be able to identify with the frustration caused by his phone, but there's absolutely no build-up for it.
He starts out dropping the papers almost immediately.
If we had perhaps seen him inconvenienced in a few scenes prior to the dropping of his binder, in general, but especially by his phone, it would have made the whole commercial that much more effective. It would have been funnier, it would have been more relatable. Maybe we could have seen what his day at work was like. Maybe he had an annoying experience before he even left for work. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and the commercial seeks to make its pitch way too quickly.
Which is why our actor makes these awkward, exaggerated faces, sounds, and has access to size-changing binders, all because he's burdened with the task of condensing several days' worth of frustration into a few seconds, which is a nearly impossible task.
The ad's sense of humor isn't very good either.
Yes, I thought the one guy's reaction to this was somewhat funny, but most of the ad is not.
After the geek makes his pitch about the phone, the ad has nowhere to go. I could just imagine a bunch of people struggling, really trying to come up with a way of ending this properly. But I gotta say, I don't like the end result.
Next, the guy finds a sword in there.
Why? Well, they're going for kind of a geeky thing in this commercial, and swords are kinda geeky, right?
Then there's a marshmallow on the end of the sword.
When did that happen? What about any of this is supposed to be funny? What? Are swords funny? Is yelling the word sword funny? Are s'mores funny? What?
Then the ad pretty much ends with some women giving him an uncomfortable look. Aww, he's embarrassed.
Like we've never seen that before. Way too many ads begin or end with some women giving a guy funny looks, which is ultimately a creatively bankrupt way of bringing closure to a joke that would otherwise just trail off awkwardly. And also, are viewers supposed to emulate this geeky guy or just relate? I don't know. If they are supposed to emulate him, wouldn't it be better if he was attractive to women? Ugh. One final complaint. I mentioned before that I like the visuals, but there is a way of making visuals appealing to one demographic without offending another.
What if I were a devout Christian? This wouldn't look cool, it would look terrifying. I'd probably feel like this phone was pulled right out of the devil's rear end.
If I were a fairly religious person, I'd be uneasy even watching this ad again, let alone purchasing the phone. It just seems like an unnecessarily exclusive ad for devout Christians. Maybe you could risk offending some smaller demographics if you think the commercial is that effective, but the sheer amount of people that identify with the aforementioned demographic is undeniable. It's just too risky.
Overall, I don't like this commercial. It does have a nice visual effect, at least one funny moment, and controlling one's phone with a single button does sound legitimately convenient. However, it's bogged down by unconvincing acting, inconsistent, unnecessary, and contrived editing, a poor explanation regarding what makes competing films so inconvenient, atrocious pacing, bad humor, confusion as to whether the audience is intended to emulate, relate to, or merely laugh at the geekier character, and potentially offensive imagery. What's worse about this ad is that even its negative characteristics fail to coalesce into anything memorable. Unlike movies, a lack of polish in commercials is a potentially good thing. The goal here isn't to appease art critics. The goal is to ensure the ad is memorable long enough to influence future buying habits. It just so happens that good art often has that effect on people. Unfortunately, the flaws in this ad are subtle enough to avoid attracting the attention of casual viewers, while failing to make what we see on the surface interesting. It's just kinda forgettable. Well, that was our last commercial. So what do I think of the Martin Agency's work overall? Well, first, let's keep in mind that it's hardly ideal to judge any company by a few projects, especially when the company is one as prolific and old as the Martin Agency. However, I think most would agree it's not very practical to cover every single one of the company's commercials. There's just not enough time. So I'll refrain from judging the agency by ads not covered in this video. Instead, I'll settle for summarizing my overall opinion of these commercials, pointing out what I feel to be any reoccurring trends among them, and sharing my general impressions of the company based on these ads. What you're about to hear is not my final word regarding the Martin Agency. My intention is to revisit their work in the future. That said, I have mixed feelings about the Martin Agency's work. Some things they do very well, most notably, capturing their audience's attention. Whether it's a talking camel, an energetic basketball player, Penelope Cruz, geeky trash talk, or a man splitting the earth in two, they have a way of guiding our eyes to the TV screen. For the most part, they also have a good sense of humor and acting talent. We see all kinds of people in their ads, and they seem to have a talent for catchy lines and audible cues to alert viewers of what products are being sold.
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy. Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
On the downside, I often feel that while their ads may be memorable, the services or products they pitch may not be. The first time I watched a couple of these commercials, I retained everything from them but the services or products being advertised. Some ads don't properly target their intended demographic, and some commercials have pacing issues. For example, the fourth ad was too long, and the fifth was too short. Finally, outside of entertainment, the Martin Agency often forgets to take advantage of TV commercials as a visual medium and show us what validates their sales pitch. Instead, they're content to just say what makes any given product or service valuable, and that's just inefficient. Like the old saying goes, seeing is believing. Overall, I'd say the Martin Agency is good at making entertaining ads, but they're not necessarily efficient. Often the products or services they advertise are forgettable. Now with that said, make no mistake, the Martin Agency is full of professionals. Their tendency to place much more emphasis on entertainment than a sales pitch is definitely intentional. It's often better to have an entertaining commercial with a weak sales pitch than the opposite. However, I sometimes wonder if the Martin Agency is aware that an ad can be entertaining while still successfully pitching the intended product or service. They sometimes seem more interested in making small movies than ads.
Well, that about sums up this episode. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to watch this video, and if you have any questions, criticisms, or recommendations, feel free to put something in the comment section. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode of Commercialize.